20XX podcast is a journey into the singularity, year by year. Based on hard science, this series searches for what is probable and possible. No other speculative fiction changes as tech evolves step by step. Follow a roadmap that will change people into new forms of life. Every episode brings you closer to the moment of singularity. It's a slippery slope, and change increases with each year.
Beth rides on top of her portable survival pod down tunnels in the abandoned mine. The pod isn't built to ride on top of. As she tires, she slips around and grows frustrated with holding onto it by its vents. The manual controls are hard to use. Her AR shows her air buttons and she moves a pointer in the direction she wants the four-legged pod to walk. The air smells musty and sometimes she hears dripping water. Using the 3D hologram map in her upper field of view, she chooses the wider tunnels. By the map, some tunnels look blocked by fallen beams, unstable with platforms built over drop-offs, and impassable with shafts dug away in the middle. Lots of smaller tunnels do branch off from the larger ones, where rail tracks are laid. Night vision works a lot better outside. Radio sensors can paint her a daylight version of the world out there. Underground, her goggles must rely mostly on echo analysis, so detail is lost. Her thumb must be broken. It hangs at an off angle and her hand is swollen. She handles the throbbing pain like a trooper. An hour into the mine, she drops a smoke bomb canister where 8 tunnels come together and continues down one of the tunnels. When the bomb is 15 minutes behind her, it goes off, sending out a small pop that reaches her ears. The smoke erases DNA, biomarkers, and Hume scent. It's designed to break down quickly, leaving behind a graveyard of any living thing that comes into contact with it. She needs to keep moving so it won't catch up with her. Several hours later, she isn't sure if she can continue riding on top of the pod. The muscles she uses to hold on will give out soon, but if she gets down and walks, she may as well leave lit signs to show the Tucker group where she's gone. She hopes the prints left by the pod aren't in the library of animals and robots their trackware uses. They use stolen military trackware. The pod is uncommon. Few even know such pods exist. Its feet are small for how far apart its legs are. Still, after an intersection, she leaves behind an explosive. She won't detonate it yet. The tunnel she chooses leads to what was an opening to the outside at one time, probably used to vent air. She steers the pod down that tunnel. When the pod has traveled about a kilometer, she places another explosive on a junction box and continues. After half an hour, when the map tells her the opening is near, she stops the pod and slides down. Her AR shows icons for the explosives that she left behind. She draws a circle in the air, selecting both, taps with her palm facing her, and taps Trigger All. Immediately, she covers her ears as booms shake the earth. Dirt falls onto her head. All over the mine, support beams groan and stones fall and roll. When silence returns, she opens the pod lid, rummages through the mess of camping and warfare supplies, digs out a full-face mask, and puts it on. She jogs back the way she came. It's 7 a.m. when she nears the area where she left the last explosive. Smoke and dust fill the air. Her night vision degrades, so she switches on LiDAR. 10 meters ahead, the tunnel is completely caved in. When she returns to the pod, she finds her medkit. Sitting on the ground, she pushes the 2 sides of the broken thumb bone together to the best of her ability, removes a wet cloth from a packet and wraps it around her hand. Her skin tingles as engineered microbes in solution kill germs and help with tissue repair while the cloth hardens into a cast. Have the Tuckers followed her to the mine? Are they in the mine now, or have they even found the abandoned home she was hiding in? She unpacks her survival pod of Century battery, mechanical stomach, and the other items. She still has 3 camp alarm stakes, so she pushes those into the dirt. In AR, she opens a deep listening app. It picks up vibrations and the whereabouts of radio signal sources. She says, "If you come, I'll be waiting for you." Even here, deep underground, she remains as quiet as possible because when the robots come, they'll listen for her. By accessing a menu and tapping to enable radio silence mode, she makes sure that none of her devices send signals, not even her water bottle signaling that it's low. In the darkness of 4 a.m., 3 Tucker men track Beth's trail to the mine entrance, a gaping hole in a cliff in the woods. By sunrise, all 21 Tuckers from the town watch bots unload gear from trucks parked next to the entrance. War dog bots enter the mine tracking Beth. The men gulp coffee and toss empty cups to the ground. Though the forest is quiet, they shout at each other, holding rifles like trophies. All wear signs, slogans, and patches that make it clear they all belong to the same team. From MAGA hats to Nazi flags, all fit the look. Jeff, we need to know if there are other ways out. Can you get a map of the mine? 2 of the men with frosted glasses wave their hands in the air as they search the world web for maps of the mine. One says, "There ain't no maps. None. They got 3D maps of abandoned barns. They got detailed maps of pigeon dropping on the Pope's house. Tube stars get famous mapping old mines. And I got nothing." The men are pumped. That girl is in the mine, an instant enemy because she killed a Tucker. Jeff, are the dogs mapping the mine as they search? Blimps and sky cranes fly above. Vic's news crew and Tuckers from other towns arrive by car or drop by sky crane. The forest floor becomes trampled and litter falls. Any word yet? The dogs lost her scent to a smoke cloud. They're spreading out. The Tuckers put on combat AR helmets, armor camo, and artillery belts. A flatbed hauling a squad of police bots plows a path up the overgrown hillside and parks between tall trees. A camera bot films a news host interviewing Carl. "Sir, who's this femme you're searching for in the mine?" Carl, a man in his 50s with a vacant stare, says, "She is an operative for the deep state. We destroyed the enemy within, but not completely. The enemy within is fractured and in hiding. We must now hunt them down." The squad of recommissioned police bots and Luton bots enter the mine. The bots carry in smoke bombs and they try to smoke the young killer out. Curious Humes drop by Sky Crane, hoping to see when the femme is dragged from the tunnels. Tuckers put up tents, chop down trees, and stomp over bushes at the bottom of the cliff. A couple of RVs join the trucks parked between trees. By evening, things have settled down. Even with dozens of bots spread out mapping, they haven't fully mapped the mine. Attempting to smoke the femme out probably erased biotraces she left behind. News people and onlookers go home. The 31 Tuckers sit around a campfire as night falls. Two weeks later, the robot teams and Hume team haven't captured or even found more evidence of the femme. Not only that, as they map more, they find 2 more openings to the surface. One is a cave-in that makes a hole in deep woods far away from any road or housing. The second leads to a natural cave with several openings to the outside. Having explored close to 70 kilometers of tunnel, the Tucker group wonders how many openings there are. Did the femme find one of them and is now long gone? War dogs handle the tunnels well, but police bots slip a lot and reach places they can't pass through because the ceiling is too low. 2 have fallen, one down a cliff on the side of one of the rail lines, and one down an elevator shaft. Tuckers do go into the mine, none will admit it, but the mine is uncomfortable and unpleasant. They have always trained for forest and urban combat. Most of their scopes and weapons are designed to operate in large, open spaces. Their AR helps them see through walls using Wi-Fi signals, but that doesn't work in a mine. Some are claustrophobic and most are nomophobic, meaning afraid of being off the world net. So they let the bots crawl through the tunnels and shafts and spend more time playing War in the Woods, sitting around campfires, drinking and using. One late morning, lots of them sit around a fire, return to a tapped keg, or sit in truck cabs playing in VR. Pacing in the ruins of what were buildings serving the mine, Mike talks over his link. "She can't have the car. She's the one who left the state. Don't tell me what about your kids." Reported income? I don't have to report income anymore. With a shaved head, furrowed brow, med-made muscles, and a slump, he kicks at the remains of a brick wall. He looks up when one Tucker hollers from outside camp. "We have company! We have company!" Others get to their feet and walk to see what the shouting is about. Hines, the shouting Tucker, jogs into camp. "Townspeople coming. Lots of them." Others say things like, "What the fuck?" Mike says, "Gotta go." He air taps, then walks toward the shouting. Several townies come into view, climbing up the hill on foot. Some ride in off-road vehicles that roll over thorn vines and dirt. More come with Luton bots, spoke-wheel follow carts, and legged wagons loaded and covered with tarps. These are people wearing cardigans, not camo, hiking shoes, not carb-toe boots, and khakis, not body armor. These people have hairdos, not shaved heads. The elderly, married couples, children, and femmes approach the machos. Tuckers instinctively grab their rifles and puff out their chests. Whatever the townspeople want, the Tuckers are having none of it. "Hey, you people, go back home!" Many townies slow down with wide eyes. A little girl with pink hair raises a finger, aims, and says, "Chick, chick, bang!" Gerald, the retired police chief with his eldest daughter, steps to the head of the approaching group. "Hey fellas, remember how I told you about those police bots and showed you how to use them? Listen up, there's a storm coming, and that mine is the only shelter." His gray mustache could use a trim. Carl walks through the grass toward Gerald. "We've got a search going on here." He notices the townies keep right on passing up him and the chief with all their children and domestic bots. Carl feels sweat form around his neck and it annoys him. "We can't have meddling in a crime scene. Plus, the kids in the mine, not a good idea." Gerald is so worked up, his jowl jiggles. "Son, haven't you checked the news? New York is gone, son. We don't have time. Let us in the mine and we'll get out as soon as the storm passes." The old man has the nerve to pass Carl and keep heading to the mine. Tuckers look at one another as townies walk past. What has gotten into them? It's like they're fleeing a forest fire. Even if a Tucker fired on one of them, they'd still try to get in the mine. All look up and dark clouds roll over and light levels drop off. Hard winds nudge people, cause the treetops to sway and pull litter off the grass. Carl says, "I guess. Well, go ahead, but keep to one area." The decision wasn't exactly his to make. Gerald calls back, "You fellas better get in the mine too. Check the news." The townies enter the mine. After the townies go into the mine, some Tuckers check the news. They weren't kidding. They say the East Coast is lost. With some arguing, they move equipment into the mine. Most of the bots are deep in the mine, so they must move things by hand and foot. Light levels drop fast. It looks like night is coming on. Trees are cracking and dropping branches as their tops whip around. Wild animals come out of hiding to dart for better cover. It's enough to make the drunkest of the Tuckers sober up and grab items to haul into the mine. A truck could fit down the entry tunnel. As they bring in boxes and lead walker flats loaded with camping supplies, Carl keeps shouting, "Take it back, knuckleheads! Don't block the way!" Just setting a box of weapons and ammo down, Jesse grumbles, picks the box up and carries it further in. In the spot where he sets it down again, light coming from the townie group glimmers on the rough-cut logs lining the wall. He says, "Real men turn bitches into cows," and hopes they overhear him. Bats hang from the beams. Antique coal cars sit between columns. He dodges other Tuckers as he jogs toward the entrance. "Ask my gun who's the real man." Another Tucker says, "What are you going on about, Jesse?" A fully loaded flatbed walker fills most of the tunnel, and Jesse rubs against the wall as he squeezes past it. Real men only eat with their hands. Forks are for pussies. Mike punches his back before running past. Jesse is yapping again. When Jesse jogs outside, the wind blows him a few meters. Real men don't get brainwashed in schools. He struggles to keep from falling over. Branches and litter hit him. Everyone outside fights the wind. The canopy on the back of the Class 7 flatbed is gone. The winds must have taken it. They've already offloaded half the camping supplies. Real men don't babysit. Real men don't use birth control. He steps onto the half-lowered tailgate lift, onto the flatbed, grabs 2 packed duffel bags, and heads to the mine. A bird hits the cliffside, and the wind blows it away. Real men don't work for no boss. Men come out of the mine and get more stuff. Jesse heads to the entrance. The air from outside moves down the entrance tunnel. Voices bounce off the walls. The walker flat can't proceed, blocking the way for the men. "Make room! Don't put it there!" Jesse gets pushed and pushes back. Real men don't clean up. Feeling hyper, he stops and drags the 2 bags to walk under the walker flat. On the other side, he must climb over plastic haul boxes. Lots of brothers shout here. He pushes past them. Reaching empty floor space, he drops the bags. Real men don't please bitches. On the way out, he must wait for Tuckers to stoop under the walker come in his way before he can stoop to go the opposite way. Real men don't need no stupid pillow to sleep. Some bringing items in are missing AR glasses or hats. Their clothes have been pulled in different directions, and their hair stands at weird angles. Shut the fuck up, Mr. Real Man. He must push against a wind blowing into the tunnel. Real men shut their own fuck up. Real men don't use toilet paper. At the entrance, people shove past him carrying suitcases, a keg, and other odds and ends. He exits, jumps off the path, and climbs a slope to a camper. The others outside try to stay on their feet with mixed success. Many fall or drop things. It's getting hard to see with all the leaves and dirt in the whirlwinds and night-like darkness. Real men don't smile for pictures. Folding chairs, tables, and tents blow off the ground and rise in arcing circles. Chev jumps out of the camper carrying 2 sacks. He stumbles, dropping the bags, and food and dishes spill out on the ground. Instead of picking it all up or any of it up, Chev runs to the mine. Thunder cracks, trees snap, and objects crash into the cliff. Jesse heads into the camper. Real men are never wrong. Real men don't owe nobody shit. The camper groans and shifts. He jumps when the door slams shut. A jagged branch as thick as his leg crashes through a window. Real men never eat at fancy restaurants. Real men never sip from straws. The entire camper tilts and rotates. He falls, striking his head on the mounted table. The camper rolls. He hits cabinet corners, windows, and walls. Items fly and strike him. Bottles, broken glass, a frying pan, and a cutting board. One wall crushes inward as the camper collides with a tree. Bleeding, bones broken, dizzy, Jesse tries to get to his feet. Real men don't call their mommy, not even when she's kicked out of the old people's home. He pushes an office chair off him. Climbing the steep floor and stepping onto the edge of a countertop, he grabs the doorknob. He opens the door against wind that beats it down. The door slams back and forth a few times before flying off. With a burst of effort, he grabs the door frame and pulls himself through. Instead of falling to the ground, he rises. Feeling like he's being thrown, his instincts are to grab onto something, so he flails. For a moment, he sees the mine entrance in the cliff before his brains are smashed out of his skull when his head strikes a tree. As the storm rages, the Tucker group moves away from the entrance to a large cavity branching off from the tunnel. Townies get settled in another cavity on the other side of the tunnel. Everyone waits for the storm to end. They can hear crashes and wind howling coming from outside. WorldNet is out. After an hour, the townies elect Jordan to see if the storm has slowed down. At the entrance, the wind pushes him back, and for all he can tell, the storm seethes as much as earlier. Every hour, they choose someone to go have a look at the storm. The whole next day, it's the same. Every hour, someone returns, saying the storm shows no signs of losing strength. As hours turn to days, they check on the storm less frequently. How long can a storm last? The cavern they wait in probably resulted from digging out ore. Old-growth beams wedged between the floor and the stone above hopefully prevent a cave-in. They bring out hand-crank camp lamps and sulfur-eating microbe lamps. The Tucker group leave them alone. They can hear the Tuckers, especially when the Tuckers drink. 25 children and 21 adults are the only ones who made it. How many townies didn't make it? All their friends, the people they worked and trades with, friendly faces they saw around town. What about the nation? Will America ever recover? Kristen and Mariah watch over Kristen's elderly mother and father. The old couple suffer injuries and don't move much, lying on smart particle travel mattresses. As days go on, the townies count the amount of food and water they have and estimate how many days it'll last. The children overcome their fear, get bored, and act out. The outside world becomes increasingly more dreamlike or the realm of nightmares. The storm has to end eventually. We need to think about how we'll rebuild. Maybe the storm isn't going to end. Don't say that. Insects, snakes, birds, and rodents come into the mines in astonishing numbers. The air is hot and hard to breathe. Most everyone develops coughs. As food runs out, they eat less each day. They can get water to filter from a pool at the base of an elevator shaft. The adults spend more time lying still. When they aren't sleeping, they stare at nothing. Children 5 and up venture away and don't return for hours at a time. Gerald announces, "People, I'm sure the Tuckers have food to spare. I'll go have a talk with them." Mariah sits up. "Don't do it. Don't open that door." Kristen next to her tilts her head forward so her hair hangs over her face. Raphael, a retired plumber, says, "Do it. I'm not about to starve because I don't like their politics." Gerald does leave. 40 minutes later, he returns shrunken and off color. His normally stern face is now deflated. With him comes all 31 Tuckers and their war dogs. He looks small next to the men decked out in war gear. The Tuckers say things like, "Wow, check it out," and "What have we got here?" They laugh and spread out, looking over the townie camp. When Carl stands over Kristen and looks down, Mariah gets to her feet. He says, "Fem, why don't you come with us?" Kristen doesn't move. Mariah clenches her fists. "You can't take her. I'm wearing streaming cambone mounts and I'm not the only one." She points at Kristen. "She's got them too. The courts will know when the storm ends." He cuts her off. "There are no courts anymore." He grabs Kristen's arm and pulls her to her feet. Kristen trembles and a string of snot hangs down from her nose. Mariah's mouth opens, but no sound comes out. The muscles in her throat twist around each other. Kristen looks so weak, like a rag that could be waved around, not like the Kristen Mariah has always known. Choking, Mariah says, "But those are her parents. You can't take her away from her parents when they don't have long to live. You don't want to do that to a family." Carl laughs as if he's bored and drags Kristen away. Kristen's dad raises a quivering hand and says, "Leave her, please. She's our only daughter. She's all we have." Carl grunts but keeps pulling. Mariah goes after Carl and is shoved back by a Tucker in his 20s. Catching herself with a back step, she watches in disbelief. The younger Tucker walks away to join the others as they leave the area. Mariah picks up a stone with both hands. She rushes forward when an impact on the back of her head causes her to fall forward and drop the stone. The isolated tunnel Beth hides in ends with a twisted and pinched opening to the outside. As she waits out the storm, heat increases, but she can always climb into her pod to get cool and breathe fresh air. The gauge on her humidity condenser reads greater than 100%, and it makes pure water 3 times faster. It's so humid, if she sets a plate on its side, drops form on it and run off. How long is the storm going to last? She presses her palm to a stone and feels shaking from the storm. The storm rumbles and shrieks and sometimes sounds a lot like a Hume scream. She recalls everyone she's ever met just to wonder if they still live. After a few weeks, the Deep Listening app shows bots moving away from her and all to a distant location. Then bot movement doesn't show up locally. The Tuckers must have called off their search for her for now. The app shows radio sending points nearby, but they don't move, and instead of sending long strings of data, they send small packs that are always the same. It's safe to guess that they're offline robots searching for a network. Never before has she seen so many small wild animals and insects in one place. A skunk walks into her lair and she shoots it with her crossbow. She lets 2 fox cubs live because they eat snakes, rats, and insects, and they shy away from her. Most of the time, she stays in her pod. Kitchen dumped thousands of books on her drive, and lots of them are about hacking, so she reads. Tuckers use a private net that her antennas pick up all the time. It would be great to try out all she's learning about hacking to break into their network, but any radio peep she might make could be located if their bots are leaving behind detectors. With Deep Listening still on to alert her to any movement headed her way, she walks back to the cave-in. Using night vision, she doesn't light the way. Near the cave-in, she shakes her head with admiration. That explosive completely closed the tunnel off. Her camp shovel isn't the best tool for the task, but it's all she has. Driving the shovel into dirt and stones, she tells herself this will take a long time. If the Tuckers do hear her and try to find her, the cave-in before this one will stop them. Mariah lies still in darkness. She doesn't crank her camp lamp anymore. Her glasses lost power. Insects and other creatures crawl over her, but she does nothing about it unless one of them tries to bite her, in which case she screeches and swings at it. The remains of Kristen's parents lie mostly eaten within reaching distance of her. The smell of old rot and sounds of tiny sharp teeth chewing on bones fill the air. Hot air moves over her. Her bones show through her skin. Sweat won't leave her skin, and the fine dust that settles on her makes streaks of mud. Rashes cover her, and itchiness penetrates deep all over. The other townie adults are like her, sinking slowly into oblivion, withering as their own bodies eat their muscles away. The Tuckers took 5 women, the children are all missing, and 3 have died, including Kristen's parents, so only 13 adults remain. Tuckers laughing, singing, and blabbering rebound off the walls. Sometimes, gunfire blasts everyone's ears, waking them and making them jerk. The Tuckers don't seem to be running out of food. Mariah doesn't know when she last ate, but a bag of cough drops was all she had left. She cried and begged for food from the others, but they did the same or implored that they too had run out. No one notices when little feet step over them. Everyone is in that state like sleep. Mariah feels tiny, hard, sharp objects moving on her lips. She tries to raise the rock in her hand and turn her mouth away, but a child's voice says, "No, eat." She opens her eyes, and a fuzzy silhouette in the dim light of a distant sulfur lamp hangs over her. "You can eat these." She brings her hand to her mouth and feels a small hand holding an insect. "What?" The child pushes the insect between Mariah's lips. Resisting, she parts her teeth, lets the insect enter her mouth, and starts to chew. The texture is like dry leaves. A chemical taste joined with a sour, woody flavor assaults her dried taste buds. The children have been eating insects, not as a dare, but daily as their main food source. Eating them raw without washing them, they jam the squirming bugs into their mouths and chew vigorously, smiling. From the way they act, one would think they eat cake or pizza. They fill bags with the bugs they catch, then eat from the bags. When a bug tries to get away, they seize upon it and chew it up harder than the others. The adults rise and walk by the walls, picking insects off, jamming them into their mouths, and chewing to kill them. Mariah isn't herself as she does this. Her primal instincts have taken over. The children, seeing that the adults have learned to eat insects, wander off to do whatever they do deeper in the mine. How soon eating insects seems normal. Moving around, she must watch out for snakes and scorpions. With her strength back, the questions come back. Should she try to get Kristen away from the Tuckers? They have automatics and experience killing. How could she sneak up on them when those warbots rove and guard at all times? Everyone remembers the footage of warbots defeating the foreign terrorists group in 20 minutes. She volunteers to drag water up from the bottom of the elevator shaft. They have a large plastic jug bungeed to a mountaineer pack frame with straps. This she puts on her back. The lift is long rotted and fallen to pieces, but she can climb the handmade ladders nailed to the support beams. The insects used to scare her on the way down, but now she picks some and eats on the way. When she steps in the water, it goes up to her knees before her shoes touch the bottom. After filling the jug and putting it on her back, she climbs up. The water may be drinkable, but they'll run it through a water filter. The climb helps her grow the muscle she lost. She has taken to doing push-ups and shadowboxing. She hates the Tuckers and hates herself for not trying to rescue Kristen. It wakes her if she sleeps for over 2 hours. Sometimes she shakes and punches her palm as hard as she can. Other townies feel the same. They make weapons out of found objects like planks, rusted picks, pieces of iron, and kitchen knives. The Tuckers grow quiet long enough for the townies to notice. For at least 2 days, no music, no hooting and hollering. A group of townies sit in a circle talking about going over there to see what happened when the Tuckers return. 31 Tuckers suited up in bulletproof armor, battle helmets, and shiny pistols against 13 townies dressed in muddy rags. The war dogs march in first and get behind the townies so no one can escape. Even the bravest townie cowers. Carl says, "Where are your kids?" Gerald says, "We don't know. They go off on their own." Carl seems to drift off in thought for a minute. "Anyone else go off on their own?" Gerald shakes his head. Carl kicks over a pile of clothes and personal items. "Where's your food?" Gerald says, "We don't have any. We've been eating bugs." Carl snorts. "That's what you've been doing. I thought you lost it." He laughs to himself. "You've got 8 men here. All the men come with us." Moans and wails escape townies. Everyone shifts stance. Townies step toward their weapons. Tuckers part feet and raise pistols. Even the war dogs tap their feet on stone as they change direction and stance. Mariah can see disgust on the faces of some of the Tuckers. What is it they want with the men? Something unspoken hangs in the air. She gags and must tilt over. Vomit spews from her mouth. When she wipes her mouth and looks up, she catches one Tucker holding back the urge to vomit. The Tuckers don't look as meaty as they used to. Skin hangs more on their faces. This isn't a riot for them anymore. They look exhausted and scared. Gerald runs at Carl with a knife drawn. A bang! Leaves Mariah's ears ringing as a blinding flash makes a blind spot right in the middle of her vision. She drops to the ground as Gerald falls backward. Carl says, "Take him! Take them! Round up the men!" More moans and wails. Femmes fall to their knees. One faints. As Tuckers march off with the men and carry the body of Gerald, the remaining townies come together and huddle, trembling with terror and rage. A few hours later, the townies smell cooked meat and hear singing, but the singing sounds strained and scared no matter how loud the singers sing it. Beth digs every day. She checks to see if human footfall or robot footfall comes her way, but none do. It seems no one can hear her digging. The Tuckers probably have military war dogs, and those things can end her in minutes if they ever sniff her DNA trail. They're much faster and stronger than Humes. It takes a hailstorm of bullets to stop one. They survive explosions, collisions, and falls from multi-story buildings. Her greatest danger isn't the Tuckers, but the warbots. Because her trail brought them to the mine, they already have her DNA scent in their computer brains. If one notices her, her death is almost certain. On her hands and knees digging, she may have broken through the second cave in. The gravel gives way in front of her, and when she reaches forward, all she feels is air. As she crawls forward, her night vision reveals an uneven tunnel, completely empty. But when she stands on the other side, her night vision picks out dogbot tracks all over the ground. She finds it harder to breathe. She crawls backward into the hole she came out of and finds stones to stack up and cover the opening. Near her pod, she breaks open a relay scatter rocket. It's like a firework, but it doesn't just fly up and explode. It flies a distance, scattering tiny relays that can receive and resend net signals. When she breaks the rocket open, she cuts open an insulated pouch holding thousands of relays that look like tiny seeds. After resting a bit, she puts on a biocontainment suit. Its bulk annoys her, but it'll keep her from leaving a smell trail. She crawls through to the other side of the cave-in. Her sensors are on full alert. Kilometers from the Tucker camp, she walks through tunnels. In some places, she must climb on steep rock or inch around vertical shafts. Every 20 paces or so, she takes out the pouch of relays and uses some tweezers from a pocket knife to select one relay and drop it. On her hologram 3D map of the mine system, she can see she nears a point where a computing system sends out the same message every second. When she drops from a higher tunnel to a lower one, she sees a large man standing between the tracks. A tense second passes, even though he almost has to be a frozen robot. Her glasses draw a line around him and labels him G32 Police Robot. She picks up a pebble, throws it, and hits the bot between the eyes. No response. Its radio message stays the same. It got stuck down here when WorldNet went down. It stands a head and a half taller than her when she stands next to it. She'll have to search her hacker ebooks for info on these bots. A door on its chest has a cruciform keyhole. This bot isn't part of her current plan, so she leaves it, traversing 2 more kilometers and dropping relays all the way. For at least 50 meters, she climbs over exposed rock slanted at a 45-degree angle. It's like climbing along a steep roof. Once reaching the end of the rock and stepping into a tunnel, she takes off her biocontainment suit, carefully folds it, and places it in an overturned coal cart. This is an ideal spot. Shaking her arms, brushing her front, and breathing a sigh, she starts down a tunnel that takes her even further away from the main entrance and the Tucker camp. For hours she walks, climbs, crawls, jumps, and slides deeper below ground. Sometimes she brushes her arms, draws fingers through her hair, and otherwise tries to spread more of a DNA trail. She comes across more frozen police bots. They are all painted the same and must belong to the same squad. Halfway back, she eats 2 meal bars, drinks water, takes a piss, lies in some silty dirt, and tries to sleep. When she awakes, she heads back. Upon reaching the coal cart holding her containment suit, she checks on it but leaves it there and walks toward the Tucker camp, still dropping relays along the way. She passes more police spots. It would be amazing if she could gain control of them. The closer she gets, the more signal source points appear on her map until she can see a cluster of points. She takes out a P9, a canister as wide and tall as a 25-cent coin, and fits it in a gap between two wall beams. Every 20 paces, she leaves a relay, and after leaving 3 relays, she places a P9 until she's placed 5 P9s. A police bot frozen mid-step onto a large flat stone has a key stuck in the keyhole on its breast cabinet. What luck! A ring on the key holds 2 other keys. She takes the ring of keys and pockets them. She finds a space behind a half-high wall made of waste rock. There she sits and watches the signal points, watches the clock, and takes notes. The dots move around the most between 10 in the morning and 3 a.m. At 6 a.m. most move very little. The ones that do move rove consistently. Her AR tags these, Quadbot WDD-55, which is a type of military-made battle droid. All the points send out the most data in the day, and the least through the late hours. What looked like one group of dots now seems more like 2. The smaller group moves differently, more steadily changing positions. Tags on these say Hume Link, offline. The larger group has points that move like Humes and the points tagged as BattleBots. The Hume points sometimes come together and sometimes move erratically. Tags on them say Hume Link, connected. With the WorldNet down, they must be connected to each other only. Points not part of either group wander the mine and sometimes join with the smaller group. Tags on these read Hume Link, offline. At first, the wandering points scare her. Are they searching for her? But why don't they take bots with them, and why do they stick close to the 2 settled groups? Whatever they're doing, they aren't covering all ground to find her. She assigns colors to the different points: orange for settled Humes, red for roving bots, and yellow for the wandering Humes. The red points all visit the same location, which is probably a charging station. One day, one of the yellow points comes her way, so she rubs combat paint on herself. It provides a thermal mask and scatters light and signals. She does this in complete darkness, but in light the black paint would glitter with tiny points of light. She retreats deep into the cavity behind the half-tall wall. Critters scatter as she breaks through spider webs. Her brazzo-coated clothes should protect her in case a snake bites. She pulls her full face mask over her head. The overhead rock and floor rock come together the further back she goes, so she scoots back in a lying position. Whoever or whatever the yellow dot is probably has sensors. Standard glasses come with sensors that pick up the tiniest noises. She wiggles her body all over to shake loose any pebbles or dirt so they won't fall when yellow dot is close. Having trained for stealth, she inwardly chants a mantra that relaxes her muscles. Tense muscles can cause microsounds even when someone thinks they're perfectly still. A tense body can rub fabric on rock, alerting AI. She feels her heart slow. Her skin feels clammy, which is good in this situation. Her hand travels to her air pistol, draws it from its holster, and points it ahead of her. Coming closer, crunch, 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 crunch. Getting louder, crunch, 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 crunch. As the point passes in front of the wall, her AR displays a 3D form made from thermal sensors, sound sensors, and smell sensors. A child's head clearly shows above the wall where her glasses get the best readings. Because of all the carbon the child breathes out, the AR tags the entity as a Hume infant. Tuckers don't have kids, do they? How awful if any of them had kids with them. Besides, the yellow points always go to the smaller group that doesn't have robots. The smaller group and the wandering points never go over to the larger group. The child passes only a few meters away from her. He wears glasses and doesn't carry a light. He passes. After a few minutes, she lets her gun drop to rest on stone. This is a problem. If innocent children roam the mine, she can't set traps for the Tuckers. This is messy. This is going to make her hunting the Tuckers harder and dangerous for her. She needs a plan B. Beth's air pistol holds 20 darts in its magazine. Don't let the name fool you. This air pistol's PSI shoots darts at the same speed and impact strength as a .22. With its silencer, shooting it makes a hiss as loud as the tick of a clock. guns that use explosives to fire heat up, making the weapons visible to AI sensors and night vision. A shooter firing gunpowder projected bullets may as well carry around a lit flare. Their gun is that visible after making a shot. Her pistol heats up too. That's why it has a canister of liquid air used to launch the darts and rapid cool the gun. Discharged air smells like average atmospheric air. The enemy's smell sensors can't differentiate the pistol's spent air from air in the environment. Let's face it, her gun is designed for stealth. Even its lubricant is micro-based and outgasses the same smells as a houseplant. At 5 a.m., sitting cross-legged in the tunnel, she air taps to turn on the front-facing light on her battle goggles. Taking out 20 darts, she twists each one to dial it from quick death to slow death. The colored lines on each dart help her twist it to the right setting. Her hands are quivering. "What's your problem, Beth?" Maybe because the storm confines everyone to the mine, she can't strike and leave town. If she's scared now, how's her nerves going to be when they're searching the mine for her? After turning off the lamp, she applies a fresh coat of combat paint. She heads for the larger group. She had surgery to have a bone-mounted jack installed behind the top of her ear. Her AR goggles plug into the jack so she can connect the computer in her canal link to her goggles and still go radio silent. Her shoes have smart particle gel soles that reduce sound. They also have tiny speakers that noise cancel her steps. Her AR evaluates the terrain and places blue shoe print holograms where she can next step. Moving things get painted in pink, so every mouse, grasshopper, spider, and garter snake litters her vision with pink. She swipes up to get the keyboard and makes wavy gestures to write, "Don't show wild animals unless dangerous." All the pink leaves her field of view, closer, closer. She rears back her head when she smells cooked meat. The air is thick with the smell of cooked meat, but this smell messes with her. What kind of meat is that? It isn't beef, it isn't chicken, it isn't even duck, deer, pork, or fish. She loves eating meat, and the smell makes her hungry, but it disturbs her at the same time. Certain primal parts of her brain wake up for the first time and pump fear juices through her veins. Is there a drug in the air? Were the Tuckers smoking crushies while they cooked? Though she otherwise doesn't need to yet, she pulls her breathing mask from the top of her head down over her face. Exhaled air stands out to thermal sensors and smell sensors, which is the reason she brought the mask, but the mask also protects her from chemicals in the air that could hurt her. She doesn't smell the meat anymore. The tunnel she takes connects to a large space with columns throughout where coal was removed maybe a century ago. She nears the open space. On her map, a red point waits between her and the orange points. The nearest orange point is about 20 paces away. She needs to do this fast and get out. Success all depends on her not getting detected until she's gone. Those battle droids are so much faster than Humes. They can even chase down Humes riding motorcycles, and she's on foot on broken ground. Her breathing grows shallow, and her movement becomes jerky. This case of nerves is bad. Is it because she screwed up her last attack? She can't let fear take over. Her lips turn white as she pinches them together. She squats, shuts her eyes, and repeats her inner chant, feeling the nightmare thoughts float away. Time to wash the sick feeling out of her. It's primal chemicals, and she needs to give her body time to let them wash out of her. Silence. The mind of a spider on its web. She opens her eyes. The red dot has moved. She stands and steps on blue footprints. Step, 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 almost running. 2 red dots come closer as they rove. She comes into the open space, toes touching exposed rock. A tune playing on a boombox sounds hollow and echoey. She refuses to look at anything but her target. Recording, she can look closer at scans and pictures of the Tucker camp later. Still, the impression does not escape her. Stolen military gear, flags, and unkemptness. Her AR tags figures lying on the ground, the names of Tuckers she has cyberstalked and learned the histories of. Kevin, Mike, Toxic, and Carl. She panics. Carl is their leader, and he's past her nearest target. If she takes him out, she cuts deeper to the bone. No. She kneels, aims, an AR target on Mike's neck turns from yellow to green, fires. She spins, stands, jogs, a target icon in her upper right field of view blinks green. Her smart pistol knew where she intended the shoot and made micro-adjustments. Get the neck. Now her heart bangs around. Now ghouls place scales on her backbone. If the war dogs noticed her, they will be on her any moment. She runs up an incline between loose iron railroad pieces. Two children looking like chimney sweeps from the 1800s look up at her as she passes. One raises a hand. Run, 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 run louder and run faster. Meanwhile, the dart she shot in Mike's neck sedates him and slowly feeds him poison. Hours later, panting, she hurries to put her biocontainment suit on. Her muscles ache, but she feels calmer. The map doesn't show anyone behind her. Climbing up onto the rock ledge, she can't run, but using both feet and hands, she makes distance from the DNA trail she left behind. In the Tucker camp, some of the men wake, down headache medicine, and pick yesterday's food off plates. One finds a rat eating meat off hand bones and kicks the rat and plate across the uneven floor. An alert buzzes in all Tucker's ears whether they are awake or not. Warning, soldier down, critical condition detected. An AR tag appears above Mike. Many Tuckers awake and partly rise, confused. Those already awake turn and stare at Mike. Mike is one of the younger, healthier men. Ron says, "Do you think he did too much?" Carl walks over to Mike. He kicks Mike a few times and pushes him over with his foot. Getting down on his knees, he turns Mike's face so he can see it. The dart between Mike's Adam's apple and jugular vein comes into view. Carl rises and scans the chamber. "We've been attacked. Everyone get your butt in gear." He barks orders. "Assist. Locate enemies." The war dogs return to camp, sniff, and search. All but Mike and two passed-out men wrestle into battle gear. Assist says, "I found a new trail left by bitch girl. The DNA matches the Hume we tracked here to the mine." A blue line showing the biotrail Beth left appears leading into one of the tunnels. Carl shouts, "Pursue! Capture!" Before the alert, 2 out of 3 war dogs were powered down. Now all 47 dogs sprint down the tunnel. It looks like they will collide at the mouth of the tunnel, but they miss each other by millimeters. Once they've left, Tuckers follow, hauling all their war gear. It took Beth an hour to get from the Tucker camp to the spot where she placed the second P9. The leading war dog reaches and passes it in 15 minutes. When it detects a robot, it sends a signal to the other P9s and they all explode at once, filling the tunnel with charged, smart particle smoke. The particles in the smoke repel each other and find their way into cracks and crevices faster than non-charged smoke particles. The protein particles react to electric motors. Electricity sucks the smoke between moving parts. The particles discharge, change their shape, and become attracted to each other, instantly binding like superglue. Within seconds of the smoke filling the tunnel, the 47 war dogs fly and fall forward as their legs slam still. The arrest of all those actuators sound like rapid gunfire. Not reaching the smoke yet, the 28 Tuckers stop. To them, it sounds like someone is firing an automatic. They smile, laugh, and run forward. In their minds, Beth fires at war dogs in a useless effort to defend herself. Their laughter and snide remarks stop when dozens of alert pop-up appear. Error 7225 WD not receiving motion feedback. Error 2735 WD not receiving motion feedback. Toxic says, "What are these?" Jeff, who handles a lot of the military tech, says the bots are sending out error messages. They've stopped for some reason. 20 minutes later, they begin to cough. The smoke is too thick. They can't go on. "Move back. Don't breathe it. Go back. We need our masks." They retreat, grumbling and cursing. Toxic says, "What are we going to do with Mike?" Carl does not answer immediately. "Waste not, want not." The others are silent, trudging through the twists and turns of the tunnel.
Thank you for listening. Please take the time to rate, review, and subscribe so that more future-minded people can find this show. My landing page is in 20xx.com. There, you can find the companion website to this podcast that includes an illustrated timeline and glossary.